Today, I'm welcoming Carolina Lasso on the Spore Journeys podcast. Carolina is a Colombian born author, teacher, and purpose guide. She's a former Google and Wall Street high performer and co author of The Purpose Reset and author of The Path to Flourishing. She now designs experiences, tools, and language to help people reconnect with what matters and align individual purpose with teams, organizations, and wider systems. Does that about sum it up, Carol?
That's a great introduction. Hi, Milan. It's so good to see you. Thanks for having me.
Great to see you again. And it was really wonderful of you and your husband, Luis, to visit us this summer. And it was I really appreciated the personal connection and conversations that we had during that time. And one of the things that we found was that we're on a very similar mission. We're on a mission to help people break away from roles and from systems that don't serve them, just as we ourselves have done, and help them rebuild their lives and redefine who they are, right? And create value and meaning from that. And so it's really
It was
amazing to
beautiful.
take that to the next step, to have you here on
Yeah.
the podcast.
Yeah, I do want to say it was certainly one of the highlights of my summer, of our time together, and everything we learned from you and getting to learn more about your work, learning from you. It was just such a beautiful experience. So I'm still vibrating, and I still have the all the energy from that time together. It was beautiful.
Amazing. Oh, I'd say the podcast is one of the first fruits from that. And let's see what else we'll create or
Indeed.
will be revealed. So I've got a few questions for you, of course, and let's jump right in. If we met today at the lake near your home instead of on the internet, how would you introduce yourself beyond titles and book covers?
The phrase that comes to my mind is, "I am an eternal student of human flourishing." And that just resonates. It's yet another fellow human being walking on this earth. But I've been really, really trying to go deep into what it is that allows us to flourish as human beings, both individually and collectively. And I'm a little obsessed about it. So I would start with that.
I think that that's more relevant today than perhaps a long time than perhaps at any point in history, really, because um, when I look around and the sense that I get culturally and from my circles is that there's an increasing disconnection and a kind of a meaning crisis. That's been a lot of philosophers and people doing work on the zeitgeist, the human condition at this time. They're really picking up on um, people feeling lost and people feeling disconnected. And so I think it's really important and relevant work to do that. And I think what brings us to this work is often our own personal experience, right? Our own personal perception. And you've said that your life has been imperfectly perfect. When did it first stop feeling perfect from the inside, even as everything looked great from the outside?
Hmm. I think I have a whole history with that word, with perfectionism. So growing up, I don't know where this came from, but I had this ongoing desire to do things really, really well, particularly at school. And I remember being like, what, 5 or 6 or 7, and worrying so much about schoolwork and homework, and everything had to be done really, really well. And I've carried that for a really long time with really good intentions, right? Behind that is the desire to do things well, the desire to improve, the desire to care about my work, my creations in a way. But alongside that, there's also the need to please others is what I've uncovered. The the belief that through doing, I get to feel accepted and loved. So of course that took many years of therapy to get to that point. And self-knowledge and inquiry, right? And I uncovered that. And of course I took that to business school, to university, to my first jobs. And for the longest time I was kind of caught up in this wheel of striving and doing and hustling, following truly what I thought I needed to follow in order to be happy. All the rules, all the shoulds, and I know I'm not alone here. So many of us have followed that traditional path. And I did, thinking that was what would take me to my own flourishing, only to discover that not only was that not taking me to that desired destination, but that I was harming myself along the way by asking so much of myself, by not taking care of myself. And that's when it all started, that deep, deep inquiry into what am I doing? Who am I? What's my purpose? And like, is this it? Is this life? Is this going to be it for the rest of my life? That ongoing hustle and striving for what? Right. So, those moments when you stop and you really ask those hard existential questions, that's when it really moved me within.
Fascinating. I mean, you've been really successful in your work and in your roles in Wall Street and with Google. So I think um, you reached positions that a lot of people would have probably envied you for. And it's really interesting that you had this existential crisis despite what you achieved in your career. And at Mycelium Hub, we often talk about redefining success, or like it's one of the themes, really. And that's really what that means to us as well, is like, are we following these um, definitions that have been created by other people and perhaps by the wider culture around us? Or are we following our own true north, our emotional and perhaps spiritual um, inclination of who we want to be? I want to go into that a little bit more and um, see if you can take us to a concrete moment in your corporate life where your body or maybe your emotions said, enough. Even if your LinkedIn said, you're winning, but um, it was one of those moments. Like, what happened that day? Is there a day that you can think of, or something that happened?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There is one moment that is quite memorable, and I actually talk about it explicitly in my book, The Path to Flourishing. Um, I always think that whenever we are deviating from our path to integrity, to our true north, as you were calling it, to our truth, our, I want to call it soul, heart, our inner knowing, our inner wisdom, that part of us that is wise and knows better will need to do something, send messages, send signals, gonna shake us a little bit in order for us to pay attention to it and say, hey, um, no, that's not the path. Come back here. Or, hmm, you're not honoring your truth by going there. So come back. And I started to feel those signals, those messages. But of course, what I ended up doing was just like put them under the rug for as long as I could, right? So I started feeling really stressed out, um, uncertain. I started to lack motivation. There were a lot of things happening. Um, Yet there was one moment. This was uh, a morning in October, and I had to give a presentation at Google at the headquarters. It was something I had to do all the time, so I was not concerned at all. Yet they had told me that I was going to be nominated for a promotion. So in my head, the stakes were high, right? For this moment. And while it was going to be a friendly audience, super easy presentation, I started to get really nervous. And when they called my name to start, I couldn't. I felt that my head was inside a bubble. Everything was blurry. I couldn't hear well. My heart was pounding. I had no idea what I was experiencing. And then it happened again and again. And now I know I started having panic attacks.
Mm.
And I did all sorts of diagnosis and medical examinations and things like that and tests to see what was happening because I thought it was physical. I now know, or the way I choose to give meaning to that event is that my soul was calling me and was shaking me and saying, "Hey, pay attention." And I had to go where it knew I would pay attention, which was related to my reputation in front of people at work. And that's what happened. And I remember it vividly. And I could not forgive myself for weeks, for months. It stuck with me. And I kept on going into so many different avenues trying to figure out what was happening. And it got so bad that I became depressed. At the same time, I was going through a divorce of things at work not going well, things at home not going well. And that combination led me to what I now can see was my rock bottom. And from there, I had to reinvent myself. But that was the beginning of it that morning of like, oh, something's off. Something's not okay. And it was so physical and so loud in a way that I couldn't ignore it any longer.
Wow. Yeah, that's an intense moment. Must have been pretty scary.
Yeah. Mm.
The other thing about going through this kind of process, I guess maybe a crisis you'd call it, perhaps. When these things showed up, when you and people would have obviously noticed like the panic attacks, or the depression. Um, what were you most concerned that other people would see, or what they might think about you? Was that something that played a role for you?
Yeah, 100%. It was tied to that perfectionism that we started talking about. And so to me, anything related to mental health issues would signify that I was not good enough, that I was too weak, that I was too sensitive, that I was not cut for the job. And especially, I remember looking up at other people hierarchically above me, in a way, we could say that. So, leaders within my organization, and they were all very strong. The way they would speak, the way they would make decisions. It was all very like strong willed. And I remember thinking, gee, I'm not cut for this. I'm really sensitive. I'm soft. I'm kind. People would tell me. Um, what am I going to do to make that, to keep on growing, to get the promotion, to get to that point? One, is that what I want? And two, I kind of need to fake it then. I need to fake strength and, wear a lot of masks. And I was afraid that they would realize that I was not good enough to keep on going and that I was too emotional or too weak. So I think that's what I was masking. And I needed to pretend for a really long time. And that's what was happening. I was wearing that mask for so long that my soul had to do something for me to take it off. And I
Mm.
did.
It sounds a little bit like imposter syndrome that
Yep.
people might find out, oh, you're not really suited to this big role, or this
Yeah.
leading position.
But you know what? It wasn't real. Usually, imposter syndrome has to do with skills. "Oh, I'm not
Mm.
good enough. Like, I
Yeah.
can't do the activity." To me, it was more about way of being. Imposter syndrome is
Right.
I'm really sensitive and I need to be strong and a little mean, even I thought, in order to get to that. So it was more about personality than skill set. I was always very confident about my skills, but
Yeah.
not about my way of being. Which now I know emotional intelligence, sensitivity, empathy, kindness. compassion are the most important skills for leaders. But because I couldn't see examples of that, I thought I was wrong.
That's a great point. Thanks for clarifying. Um, so, I mean, if you look back now um, with kindness or with compassion, and you look at that aspect of yourself of the overachiever, Carolina, um, what was she trying to, what was this aspect of yourself trying to perhaps protect or to prove?
Worth, value, that
Mm,
I was a valuable team member, that I I contributed, that I was part of it. So a lot of it has to do with belonging. And I can now see that I tied my self-worth to my title, to my job. And so I couldn't lose it. Losing that sense of worthiness
mm.
meant losing my entire identity. Death.
That's actually, I like what you said at the beginning when I said, like, what if we just met at a lake? What would you say to me? That's kind of the thing that's beyond the role, right? That's
Mhm.
who you are as a person. And it's so nice to see how clear you are about that now after coming out of that whole process. So moving on to the beyond that, you did that big the leave, the travel, the ashram west. And what's one myth about that kind of journey that you wish we could drop because it doesn't really match reality?
There are so many avenues we could go into, but yeah, when all of this was happening, I decided to just leave. I didn't want to continue living like that. I needed space to do my self-reflection and my self-inquiry. And so that's why I decided to do that trip around the world on my own. A little cliche, having to travel thousands of kilometers in order to connect with my true self. And that's what did it for me. So yeah, as you said, I lived in an ashram and I did art therapy and I visited different places to learn from ancestral wisdom from different communities and cultures. And that did it for me. That it was only 6 months. Milan was not too long, but it
Mm,
completely changed my life and the way I thought of myself and what I wanted in my life. So, your
mm.
question was, what would I drop from? Say it again.
Um, well, I mean, there are common ideas about going on that kind of pilgrimage that you can kind of um, find yourself, and a lot of people do. Some people do get lost, and they just go kind of on the trail and kind of um, they're afraid to re-enter the system and to get clear on their
Mm,
purpose and to create value in some way. Um, but I think the main point about it is just that skeptics would say, well, you can't run away from yourself, um, and you'll be you wherever you go. But I get the sense that stepping out of your usual rhythms and chores and your environment and taking yourself into a new place can give you a chance to reinvent yourself. And it sounds like
yeah.
it's had that effect on you. So,
Yeah, yeah. I have an image of I remember arriving into Italy and I was doing art therapy there and just I love art. And I got a blank canvas in front of me. And I love that feeling. I've painted for a long time. So, ooh, white piece of heaven in a way. What what am I gonna put on it? And that's how I felt about my life. Like nobody knows me here. I am nobody's sister, nobody's daughter, nobody's boss, nobody's employee, nobody's wife, anything. I am just a human being, living, breathing,
mm,
going to art class, having breakfast, having my espresso at the corner. I am just being. And that felt so profound. And I couldn't have done that at home, perhaps, because I was surrounded by people and like people know you and whatever. And so that opportunity to just look at an empty canvas ahead and decide what colors do I want to put on this canvas? What do I want to create? In essence, what do I want my life to be? Who do I want to become? And having that spaciousness. And then after Italy, I went to India. And my friends joke that I did my own version of Eat, Pray, Love, kind of Colombian version of that. And living in a place where all I had to do was once again be and pray and go to the sea, to the beach to meditate and meet other people and have conversations. Once again, the being, leaving behind the doing was exactly what I needed. And each person's different, but what I needed was that space to feel, be, be authentic, be authentic. What is it that I really want in my life, and how do I really truly want to live? Understanding, I do want to name that was a privilege for me to open up that space, to pack up my bag, and to have the opportunity to leave simply, and to have the option to have that stillness and that quiet moment to explore is something that not everybody has the opportunity to have. And so I felt quite privileged and thankful for the opportunity. Therefore, I also then gained this sense of responsibility in a way to share it and to talk about it because I had the gift of living it in the first person.
Mm. Yeah, totally. I think it's a lot of people refer to that like as a sabbatical year or a sabbatical semester, just a time out from life as usual to breathe and
Mm.
perhaps find yourself or get closer to that essential aspect of your being. And yeah, getting away from the noise and the distraction of everyday life certainly creates that space. And yes, there is an art to creating that space in your life. It's a very deliberate effort, and I think what you're saying is it's really worth taking that step if you feel that way in your life. It's worth making that effort if you have that possibility to really um, take that time away from your normal commitments and your normal routines. Was there like just regarding the corporate life and what you've done after? Was there a precise moment that you knew I'm not going back into corporate in the same way again? And what did that decision cost you in identity, status, or even family expectations? But also, what did it free up? Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. When I came back from my trip, I noticed there was a shift. And the shift was that I stopped worrying so much about me, my performance, my perfections, my promotion, my thing, which, you know, we see in the corporate world so much, each person looking after themselves. And what I wanted to do was like, I gave up on the whole promotion, calibration, 360 feedback, all of the stuff that we had to go through. And I just wanted to be a good leader for my team. And that was my focus. And I was like, you know what, just since I already, my mind, I said, since I already messed up my reputation because I had a mental health leave of absence. And in my head, what that was just like, oh, I completely damaged my reputation. Therefore, I don't care anymore. Of course, it's
Mhm.
not true. Of course, everybody knows someone who has gone through some issue related to mental health. I think we're being a little bit more outspoken about it nowadays. Regardless, that's what I felt. So, in a way, I stopped caring. And that was the most magical thing I could have done, both for my career. I actually ended up doing really well. And also, I enjoyed it a lot better. And I focused on developing my team members and really, in a way, I started looking into their purpose and their personal development. And I was fascinated by that. And so it was fine. But
Mm.
then I got a job offer. I was certified in the it's called Search Inside Yourself program. This is the program that was born at Google, focused on mindfulness based emotional intelligence and leadership. I was so happy about that certification because in a way, it gave me language that was okay to use in the corporate world. But behind it was all the personal development, human flourishing, mindfulness, meditation topics that I was really always fascinated by. And so through that, they invited me to become the global head of marketing for that nonprofit organization, which had spun off from Google a few years ago. And I loved it. And I decided to quit and to join them. I knew from the beginning that was a big yes internally. And I think this is beautiful when our bodies are able to discern a yes and a no. There's so much power behind that, and we rarely pay attention to it. But I felt a full on yes, this is the thing I wanna do. I wanna pursue this career. I wanna switch. I don't care. I love this. Oh my gosh, pinch me. That was my heart. That was my inner knowing. Yet my head, my ego went, "Are you kidding? Are you going to quit a company like Google? You're doing so well now. You feel better. You're doing great. Your team members love you. No, no way." And I was going to get that promotion. Of course, there was more money, more equity, and then the reputation and the solid support of having an organization like Google behind me, kind of like that container.
Mm.
There was no way I was going to give that up. And so, of course, I started talking to people and doing my pro and con list and all of that. That was just validation that my mind needed to logically say yes, whereas there was an inner wisdom that had already said yes before. And I see so many people do that, seeking for validation, logical, mental, intellectual validation for something that they already know the answer to within themselves. But anyway, I ended up quitting. And luckily, my family has always been wonderful and so supportive. And they said, if this is what you want to do, we fully support you. Like, no one questioned
Mm.
me. And then back then, I had a friend, a good friend of mine, who had also quit Google to go into education. His name is Louis. He's now my husband. He supported me. And anyway, it was a lot easier than I made it feel because I was, um, in a way, having a little bit of a fight between my heart and my mind. But in the end, I
Mhm.
decided to quit. And didn't think it was going to be kind of closing the corporate world completely. But I haven't been back. And so we'll see. We'll see what happens next.
That's really cool. I really get how liberating it is to um, come from a position of, well, I've got nothing to lose. I'm just going to go for it. And I can see how that really fueled you. Um, I I think that it's really interesting that um, you're involved in this uh, purpose discovery work, or supporting people to find their purpose within that corporate environment. And I wonder if you ever came across this kind of, um, let's see if I can put it the right way. When we work on our purpose, a lot of the time, as we actually go into it, depending on how much work we've done previously, it might show up that actually I shouldn't be doing this job. I should be herding llamas in Chile.
That
Or
sounds
not
fun.
ready, but so it could be something quite different. And I've always noticed that when there are these kinds of programs in a corporate framework, the context of I'm in this job can be set, or some companies are actually open enough to say, hey, if this turns out that you should be doing something different, then go and follow your heart, because we only want people here who who are in their purpose. So I wonder how you navigated that within that work, or was that not an issue there?
Um, I notice it a lot more now that
Mm,
I am coaching and mentoring people to, I call it reconnect with their purpose because we oftentimes talk about finding purpose. And to me, it's less about finding something that got lost or finding a path that never existed. It's always been there. And so it's about reconnecting to that, which gives us a sense of meaning, a sense of alignment. I think alignment is the biggest word, alignment with your truth. And for many people, it does mean making a big change. And for many others, it's not about a radical change, quitting your job and moving to Africa to work or moving to Chile to work with the llamas. It's not that. It's about diversifying sources of meaning.
mm,
And I'm a big proponent of the portfolio life and the portfolio career, which is to, in the same way, you diversify your investments, your sources of income, you can also diversify your sources of meaning. And what does that mean to
mm,
you? And to what extent can you do more of what you love without necessarily having to make a radical shift in your life? Because I acknowledge that a radical shift is not accessible to everybody. And or it can create a lot of change and ripple effects that you may not want to have in your
mm.
life. So so it's just fascinating to see how for each person there's a different path, but that living with meaning is one of the most critical elements of well-being. And that whenever we're not true to ourselves and our callings, and whenever we're not doing more of those things that give us a sense of joy, we are going against our own well-being. And so, what can we do? What's feasible? What transformation, what big or small shifts can we do? Of course, it depends on each individual situation and context, but I absolutely love diving into that and going through those processes with people um, and seeing what happens after those changes are implemented.
It must be fascinating, and just because it's such an individual process, right? Like for everyone, it's a little bit different, but it's really just reflecting back on what you're sharing. It's really highlighting the choices that we have and the agency that we have as individuals to create our own lives and to make adjustments in big and small ways. And I think this portfolio lifestyle, if I can call it that, is very, very resonant with what we're doing at Mycelium Hub. You know,
Mhm.
we're looking at the areas of life and thinking about, well, what are the things that you spend time on in your life, and um, do you think you're spending do you think those things are important, or are you putting in the time that you need to put in to actually look after that area? You know, and just kind of making that um, obvious and visible. But before we dive more into that, I just wanted to also um, touch on something that emerged for me when you were talking about this purpose work, and that is the importance to reconnect with your intuition. You know, if we're talking about reconnecting, and to listen to your inner voice, to your heart, if you want, um, versus all of the external voices and expectations and signals, and that's such a key point. You know, it's like to switch from um, oh, but so and so is going to judge me, and so is going to be annoyed if I do this. And, you know, the reality is most people are so busy with their own lives, they're not really acutely monitoring and judging the
Yeah.
actions of the other people, right? But it's just this feeling that we have. But you switch and you go to what do I know that I need to do, or you know, what's the direction that I need to go in. So I really like that.
Thanks
Uh,
for highlighting that part. I think it's the heart of the path to flourishing. It is the heart of the path to purpose and meaning, connecting to that intuition. I spoke about that discernment of a yes and a no, connecting to that inner knowledge. And that has to start with self inquiry and with stillness. And it also has many different ways of manifesting. But I think it's at the core of this work. And I actually just gave a TEDx talk in Colombia, and it was about that and how we all have an inner GPS. And that GPS is guiding us all along. And all we have to do is pay attention when it says recalculating, right? And it just and where is it guiding us toward? What's the destination? The destination is the truth, the essence, your real self, your inner self, your soul, your heart, however you want to call it. And so the path we have to walk in our lives
Mm.
is the path toward that truth, integrity, whole, real essence. Um, and so whatever deviates us from that path is when we have those wake up calls or moments or life lessons. And so we go back to it and we go back to it. And that's what it is. Go back to that inner knowing, that intuition, that wisdom that we have within
Hmm.
to recognize and to honor who we truly are. That's purpose.
Wow, that's great. Thanks for sharing that clear vision. Um, and it totally makes sense, when something happens that has such a profound impact, like a panic attack. I mean, I was just imagining it as you were speaking, and how devastating that would be. And then the response to something like that being, okay, I need to listen, I need to stop, I need to figure out what's going on, and I'm somehow off track. That in itself is also, I think, another really important message, because um, people respond in all kinds of ways. I'm thinking of situations like that in my own life where there's this performance anxiety, and we make it harder for ourselves. Like, oh my God, this thing happened, I messed up, and I'm going to have to, you know, work harder, do something else. But to just stop and listen, and to just connect with our own inner knowing that's always there, it's always available. And um, that's a really powerful tool, I think. And just to go that into that kind of purpose as a living system idea, and that's also like a connection with the work, the mycelial perspective, I'd say. In the purpose reset, you describe purpose as aligning our what, why, and who across individuals, teams, and organizations. And I like how you've got those three levels there that we also like to work with, and like in terms of tools and processes, at which levels do you apply them? So that's a great overlap. If you translate that into the mycelium image, um, where do you see yourself now in terms of like a spore, hyphae, network, or fruiting body?
Oh,
Okay.
I love the question. Hmm. I want to say spore. I really have this intention, desire, calling to connect, share more, spread the seed of this knowledge. In essence, it has helped me so much. I am so curious what it would look like if we were to share it more broadly. And so have that calling and that desire. And that's why I write books and I have my podcast and I have courses and workshops and I do one on one work and retreats. And it's just this desire to spread and to connect. Um, because then the other image I'm getting is as we work on our own purpose and as we connect with our true selves, what happens is that recognition of who I truly am as my true essence, my divine essence, if we could call it that, tied to it immediately right away we start seeing, oh, I can recognize my own true self, my own divinity. And right away, I can start seeing the divinity and the real connection that we have with other people and that everything is interconnected. And I think that's the definition of spirituality in my life. I recognize my own divinity and it's not just mine. I'm recognizing that I'm connected to everyone else, everything else, and that we are inseparable. So that interconnection, that unity, that underneath it all, we are just one mycelium in a way, right? That visual is the one of the end results of doing our inner work. And I don't think we
Mm.
should stay within just with our own internal individual work or self, but that purpose has that service component, that connection component.
Mm.
And so it's both within and without, like externally, beginning with the self, the inner work, and then the outer work.
That reminds me of the saying. I don't remember who said it. Perhaps you can remind me, but it goes something like, the best thing that you can do for the world is to be fully yourself, right? And I love that because that's the think global, act local thing as well. So it's like the best way to serve the world is to be a full expression of my potential, or as near to that as possible, because in doing so, I'm going to create life and excitement and energy, and that's going to flow and it's going to um, make an impact in some way. And it relieves that pressure of, oh, I have to do something over here. I have to go over here and help this person do something, or do something external. So it's like, just by healing myself, I'm actually, I don't know who said that, and they probably said it in a much more compact way, but
You said it beautifully. I do not remember who said it either, but it is so true. It is the biggest gift you can give yourself and the world. There's a saying attributed to young Pueblo, and it says, do the earth a favor, don't hide your magic. Do earth a favor, don't hide your magic. Show your magic, be who you truly are, shine with authenticity, with vulnerability,
Mm.
with transparency, reconnect every single time to your heart, to that inner knowing, to that inner wisdom. And that is what will help us connect to kindred souls and do the things we want to do in our lives and leave the legacies we want to leave and have the impact we want to have. But it has to start with that recognition, with tr- total authenticity. I think that's just the beginning of it all.
Mm. So absolutely. And um, I just wanted to comment on, where you put your work, and how you talked about your work. I think you've got really quite a profile online with your following, and your talks and the books that you've done. So I feel like you've really come a far way to expressing um, that new um, purpose that you have in your life, and it's really inspiring to see. And I um, to kind of take that to a more practical level, I just wanted to ask you, like, for someone listening from a big company in a corporate job, perhaps someone maybe who has um, panic attacks in the bathroom, or scrolls job sites at night. What's a micro aligned action that they can take this week that doesn't blow up their life, perhaps, but starts to shift the system inside of them?
Hmm. First of all, oh gosh, I've been there. I feel you. I know what it's like. Mm, you're not alone. And the second invitation that I would have is one of my favorite words, and that's curiosity. So explore each day What gives you a sense of curiosity? Is it a specific website that because their mission is fascinating to you? Is it someone on Instagram that you follow and you admire because their work is aligned with your values? Or, you know what? I'm just curious about this topic. I'm just going to ask ChatGPT about it. Or I'm so curious about this thing. I'm going to read a book about it or the podcast. Just observe what makes you curious and follow the thread. Follow the thread. What's there? So this book maybe look for this topic, which led me to this person. I want to go have coffee with that person. Then that person recommended a podcast. I'm going to listen to it. Just like keep on pulling that thread of curiosity. Curiosity feels more grounded, more attainable, a little kinder. That's something like follow your passion and, make the radical change to follow the thing. Just like follow your curiosity, but do it. Do it. Spend time in stillness, alone, thinking about what is it that makes you curious? What is it that brings that little spark of joy?
Mm.
Oh, this topic, this thing, let me look it up. Do it. Look it up. That is bringing you to a level of joy right there and then. You don't have to wait until you make the change. You don't have to wait 5 years. You don't have to wait until you launch a new company and there. There is joy right there and then. Follow it and keep going and see where it takes you. But do take action. So curiosity with action and see where it takes you. And you may be surprised. You may be surprised. You're both going to increase your joy in the moment because you're doing more of the things that give you that sense of curiosity, joy, enthusiasm. And you may be uncovering something new for you. Begin there.
That's great. Super helpful. And it reminds me of this analogy of life as a computer game that I sometimes think about, and it's very similar to that. It's like there's a person I haven't called, or there's a thing I haven't done. There's like a quest. Like, what's the
Uh-huh.
quest that I still need to do, and then that unlocks the next level. Because
Yes.
you know, like I need
Yeah.
to complete certain things. There are certain things like anyone will have those. I think if you think like, oh, I haven't followed up on this thing. So what you're talking about, this curiosity is the key to doing that and to see what else will unfold because it keeps going, right?
It keeps going. I love the visual of unlocking new levels, new things, and sometimes there may be a monster. You may need to work a little harder there to overcome that hurdle, and then you're on the other side. And along that path, I always talk about 3 C's. So the first is curiosity, which I just
Mhm.
talked about.
Mhm.
The second one is courage. Courage to take action. Courage to stand by those things that are important to you, your values, your intentions, honor that courage. Sometimes we may need to go against culture and shoulds, and we have to do it. And the third one is compassion. Just make sure that along the way, you recognize that some moments are hard and that we have to offer ourselves love and compassion and patience. Curiosity, courage, compassion.
The 3 C's. I like it.
Yes.
Um, so let's talk about community. Um, in our previous conversations, you named community as the one thing that you'd magic wand into your life. How much of your hardest chapters did you do alone? And what kind of community space would have actually helped then?
So important. That my perfectionism, that aspect of myself that I spoke about, led me to think that I could do it all alone. And I would put all the weight on my shoulders and I would carry the weight and I want to do it alone. And the fact that I've moved so much geographically speaking has meant that I've had trouble creating community. I'm pretty sociable. I make friends quickly, this and that. But I think I've been seeking depth in my community, deep conversations. What we're having right here. I lost track of time completely. I'm in a state of flow because this fills my cup so much, right? These types of conversations, all the conversations we had while we were at your beautiful hub, that fills my cup. Now, as I enter the second half of my life, the last half of my life, if you will, I'm noticing how how important it is, how critical it is to have that community. I'm noticing the value, the importance even more so. And I'm actually starting a new movement with two friends of mine. It's called Needed. And we're creating a movement to foster friendship, especially in the second part of our lives. And I've been doing a lot more research on it. And I'm noticing how it is such a critical component of well being as well, and how we cannot live without it. So, that sense of belonging, that sense of community, and relationships. At the end of the day, it's always about relationships and connection, support. And as human beings, that sense of belonging is critical. So, um, I think in summarizing it, my first book, The Path to Flourishing, is about inner balance, stillness. It's based on mindfulness heavily. There it is. That's the Spanish version, plenitud, my favorite word in the Spanish language. Cannot translate that one.
I'm
Uh,
holding up her book for those who are only listening.
that's right. Um, and so that is about like connect yourself, have moments of stillness, connect to your own soul and inner wisdom. Then is purpose. Purpose is all right, how do I bring it out to the world? What can I do to give me a sense of meaning? And then there's third component is relationships. How do we connect? How do we build truly, truly authentic and deep connections with people? And all together, those three, oh, that's the basis of a life of meaning, well-being, and that's the basis of a flourishing life.
Great. Yeah, that sounds really clear. Do you find that so having community is a way for, you want communities where deep reflections or deep conversations can take place. Um, you find those online or offline, or does it really not matter?
Mm, I've always preferred in real life,
Mm,
IRL,
yeah.
um, ever since the pandemic, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, but we've had to move some things to online, and that has had its place.
Mm,
I had a very, very strong community in California where I used to live, and when I left, we we stayed as online friends, and it plays a beautiful role in my life to have those connections, to still stay in touch. But I don't think anything can replace in person connection. And that's why I'm such a big, big fan of retreats
mhm,
and having those experiences and the depth of conversation, the depth of inquiry together. It's just so beautiful. I think that's my in terms of doing, that's where I'm at my highest state of flow and happiness and joy. And it gives me so much meaning to be in those in-person conversations. And it's an ongoing quest, right? We lose friends
mm.
every 7 years. I think there's a statistic. Every 7 years, we lose a big chunk of our friends, and we make new ones, and we flow with life. And I think it's really beautiful to then continue to seek that authenticity in relationships and understand how we can connect with other people who are aligned in terms of values, intentions, and life aspirations. So it's an ongoing path.
And that really deepens that definition of community for me. Speaking of retreats, did you've got one planned for Colombia next year, is that right? Do you wanna tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love leading retreats at the beginning of the year as a way to start the year with intention, with alignment, greater alignment with that which we want to call in for the year. And so it is a space to go and retreat in the Andes in Colombia. This beautiful place full of green and flowers and birds, and it's really beautiful. And there we go in and we get together and we have those conversations and we do lots of really, really cool workshops to reconnect with ourselves and from there with our purpose for the year and for life. We do cacao ceremonies, we do hikes, we go to the river. Each day focuses on a specific element. So earth, water, fire, air, ether. So it's really beautiful, and of course it gives me it's such an honor for me to be able to hold that container and to connect with so many people who attend and walk away feeling recharged and reconnected.
That sounds really cool. So it's like you're doing in that retreat that process of reconnecting with purpose and helping people come out with a new sense of self, it sounds like.
Exactly. Yeah. And we have a lot of fun. And of course, it's Colombia. So there's dancing and there's
Yeah.
singing and there is really good food.
Yeah, awesome. So people can also perhaps create or deepen some existing friendships or relationships at
Yeah.
that kind of
So
retreat.
beautiful. And witnessing that is incredible. That sense of community that
Yeah,
inevitably gets started. Yeah. It's so beautiful.
awesome. And we'll put the info for that and everything else that you do
Thank you.
in the podcast notes, of course. Um, but so just coming back to the process of walking purpose together and your perception of, okay, what does that look like in practice? And I think the retreat is one um, hint at that. But I just want to highlight the perspective of, it's less of a guru thing. It's less of a like, oh, follow me, be like me kind of thing. And it's more of a garden or a mycelium lab. I think you once referred to it. Um, what does that look like in practice ongoing, even beyond a retreat, let's say?
The beauty of purpose is that once we recognize what it is that we want to do and how it is that we want to live on earth, then it creates some sort of magnet for other people walking on the same path. Like I feel like that with you and your team, right? Where it's so similar what we're doing and how we connect with people, even with different prisms, but it just connects you automatically with other like-minded people. And when you get to do that, when you create those movements, small, big, in your family, your community, your own city, in the world, doesn't matter. Not only does it create a bigger ripple effect, but it feels better. It feels really good. It's so much fun when you get to play with other people and do things together that are aligned with that sense of purpose. So I think it's that ongoing dance to connect with people, explore, do things together, support one another, support one another. How beautiful is that, right? And to see other people shine and to celebrate their accomplishments and to connect them to other people that may be of help and to live in community, whether we're close by or far away, we can create that community by being there, by showing up, by supporting, celebrating, asking for help. A hard one for me, but that's part of it. And I think what you're creating is so beautiful because it is that connection is the, hey, I'm raising my hand. I'd love to be a part of something.
Mm.
That raising your hand, I want that sense of community and belonging. It's just so critical, even to our nervous system. When you have that sense of community, support, belonging, makes sense, right? We come from tribes where if you didn't belong, if you were all alone, you'd be killed, you'd die. So we have that within our nervous system, in our DNA, that fear of like, if I'm not with others, I may die. And that's why belonging is such a critical component. And that's why when we don't feel it, there's so much fear of not fitting in, of not belonging. It's a core level fear. And when we have it, and when it's aligned with our values, with our intentions, with our purpose, oh, it's beautiful. And it can make a big, big difference.
That sounds really like the way that community is going and the way that I'm experiencing it as well, which is that we come together for retreats or events or workshops, and then um, we go back to our respective countries, but we still connect on Zoom, or we have different projects that we work on, and so there's a sense of community that arises from um, having that continuity of uh, connection, and then deepening that in person. So I think those two elements are always going to be um, there's going to need to be some combination of that as we move forward doing this kind of work, for Mycelium Hub, and I see you doing that as well. And the other thing about community that I think is so valuable, and you've implied that here, but really it's when you reinvent yourself, when you reconnect with purpose, it's so important to experiment, isn't it? It's so important to start moving and start following that curiosity and doing something and trying out stuff. And I think community is so valuable for to create that space of, hey, it's okay. I know you've never
Mm.
done this before, but we're gonna, have a look at it. We're gonna cheer you on. We're gonna give you constructive feedback, and we're definitely not gonna shame you or ask, oh, but you've got this title. Why are you doing that? As a strict relative might do. So I think that's also super important. But yeah, purpose and community, it's a powerful combination. One thing that and we want to wrap it up because we're almost at our time limit, but I just wanted to touch on one thing before we do, and I'll ask you to um, tell people how they can connect with you. But before we go into that, I just wanted to see there's this idea of, composting. We had in our previous podcast, we were talking with Jess, and she's got this rot and regenerate framework, and we've worked with that a little bit from our mycelial interpretation in terms of if you want to create something new, you need to perhaps rot something first, or allow something to compost, and then tap into the resources that frees up. Um, Do you address that in your work? And if so, how? Like to address, the things that aren't working right now, and how do we let go of that? How do you approach that?
100%. 100%. I tend to think of the metamorphosis as the example for that. And I use it quite frequently. And how you may be a worm who has no idea you're going to eventually fly. And the beauty of it is your DNA, your cells internally are ready for it. But something has to die, something has to rot in order for the new to come. And that sounds quite extreme, right? Like the poor thing has to completely dissolve and become goo in order to develop wings and become the butterfly. That may happen. I felt like I had to go through that. I had to completely dissolve it, but it doesn't have to be that radical. Yet, I do think parts of us do have to die, and we have to transcend them, if that's a better word for us to use. And whether that's ego parts, or that could be the inner critic, or it could be a specific way of being, or a specific role, or a relationship, or a city, whatever it is, we do have to move on and leave things behind in order to open up space for what's new. I remember something explicit. I remember when I was really interested in having a relationship, romantic relationship. I left a drawer in my closet open for this person to come in and fill it. And it was a symbol. It was a sign for me to say, you know what? I'm ready for a relationship. I want something serious. And here's space for you. And it was symbolic, right? But like we do need to open up space for what's new. Otherwise, if we're all super, super crowded, we can't welcome anything new. I
Mm.
think there is that story of the monk who was having tea with with a student, and the student was holding the cup, and the monk kept on pouring tea over it, and the student was like, "Master, like, why are you doing this?" And he said, "You can't stop. You don't stop asking questions, then how are you gonna get the answers? If if I don't stop, if you don't have enough space in your cup, if you keep on pouring and pouring tea, you're just overflowing, you're flowing, you can't take anymore. You have to open up space." I probably butchered that story, but you get the idea. The importance of letting things go, meaning yes, compose, rot, die, even though those words can sound negative, but that's the truth. That's what we need to do in order to reinvent ourselves, recognize what we want to flourish, what we want to, um, what do we want to give birth to? And sometimes things do need to die in order to open up space for that.
Wow. Yeah, something has to go before there's room for the new, and that's great. That's a big part of it, and that probably also involves some grief or some
Yeah. Yeah.
letting go because, it's almost like a part of my ego dies when I choose a purposeful path. There's a part of myself that's identified with the things that aren't part of that, and so I have to, yeah, let it compost, let it go, and grieve that and move on.
I literally just saw a little butterfly flying in front of me. Did you see it?
Yeah,
As we were talking about it, I'm like,
like, where
I'm like, where did it go?
where did where did that come from?
Where
So
did that
good.
come from? Whoa.
Um, so, um, I wanted to just ask, what would you tell then, and then we can really wrap it up because we're almost out of time. What would you tell younger Carolina in Bogota and that listener right now at their desk about the difference between abandoning your life and allowing yourself to molt or reshape into a new one?
What I would say is follow your truth. And truth feels like expansion, freedom, peace. Whatever step you take, if it feels like it's bringing you toward freedom, expansion, and peace, that's the right step. You're not going to mess it up, but move toward that, your truth. Honor it.
Well, that's great advice. Thank you. And is there anything else that you want to share with our listener at this point? And also, apart from that, do you want to share where people can find you, where they can connect with you online, um, and what you'd like to share with people? So, what are the spaces where you want to connect with them?
Yeah, maybe as a closing, um, there I actually have this in front of me at all times. This is a message by Spring Washam. And she says, "I am forever remembering that everything is here to teach me how to love. I am forever remembering that everything is here to teach me how to love." And to me, that how to love is going back to your true self, your essence, your authenticity. And so whatever you do, just move toward that and you'll be fine. You'll be okay because you're honoring yourself. And I'm here to
Thank you.
support you, anyone listening. If you want to have a conversation, you want to explore what's next for you, whether you're changing your career or you want to reinvent yourself, or you just want a little bit of more meaning in your life or more joy, more balance, I'm here. And so I do one on one coaching and mentoring with people. And I also have group classes and workshops and And I also give talks at organizations or universities. And so I'm available. I'm here. This is my purpose. And so it fills me with joy to be able to do this work. And I'm super grateful for that. So thank you. Thank you for this beautiful conversation.
Thank you so much for your time and for sharing from your journey and all of your insights along the way. And yeah, it's been great to have you on the podcast. And I look forward to seeing what unfolds from here.
Same. And I hope we can meet again in person very soon.
Absolutely.